Okay, so today we will be talking about the elementary challenge for WRO 2020. So first of all, we are Absolute Zero, and we do FTC, which is the first tech challenge. Our team number is 12096, and our website is listed on this page. We are also part of a nonprofit organization called Robotics for Youth, and in this organization we aim to empower students in STEM through robotics. So first we're going to start with a video. This video is from last year's WRO challenge for the elementary age group. So I'll pass it off to our coach, Coach Dinesh. Would you like to explain the next few slides?
Okay, let me share my screen here. Okay, so I'll go over, so what you see is a pretty advanced solution for last year's mission. There are multiple things about multiple areas that they have done extremely well. The areas being the build, the navigation, and the overall strategy to optimize or complete that challenge in the smallest time possible. So the overall goal is, just show you an advanced strategy, and then the team will walk you through some simple strategies and help you begin solving this year's challenge. Okay, so let me go over this video again. Let's see. Okay, one sec. Can I play this video? Okay. One thing that you see here is that they have a very good fast navigation, right? And they've got very good line following, which means they have a build that allows for very fast navigation, which means they have large tires here, and likely they are using medium motors, but that's for advanced builds. But also they likely have two color sensors pointing down for line following. Okay. Okay, the other thing is, if you look at the tooling, so if you look at the tooling, they got, you could have a tool that captured both the pieces at the same time, but they have, to better, so because the game pieces are different colors, you want to, and each game piece based on its color needs to be placed in a different section. Like, for example, in this case, the green person needs to be placed in the zoo section, while the white person needs to be placed in the home section. So that's why you need two different toolings in place, so that you can pick and place each person in a different area. Plus, you have this robot likely has two forward-facing color sensors as well, to detect what the color of each person is, or whether there's a person at all in this when they go on to pick up a game piece or a person. Okay. So let me forward this. So this is where they capture both the game pieces in a single step, and also detect what the color of the game pieces are. So they drop one piece in the red section, and then here again they don't drop this game piece all into the white space, but they place it in a temporary area while they tackle the other pieces, right? And now they come, and then the robot comes back and then drops the white game pieces in the home, because that is the closest location to their final finishing area. So that's how they optimized the route as well. So when you're looking at solving a challenge, you have to look at three different areas. One is the build. You have to tailor your build to solve a particular challenge, which means that you have to know where to place your sensors, which are color sensors. In case you're using gyro sensor, then you place those that in appropriate area. Then in this case, I think they're using 4 color sensors, right? 2 facing down for line following, and 2 facing forward for detection of the game pieces. Navigation, obviously, determining. So if you look at the strategy, navigation strategy, first they dropped off the battery, then they could have easily gone on to pick up the um, the uh, game pieces here in the school area, but they went out to this area because that allows them. So if you look at, because the game pieces here need to be placed in a different location. And if you look at all these different areas, only the green location has some space here to place the game pieces without knocking out the original game pieces, right? So that's why they chose this green, this area to tackle first, right? Pick up the game pieces from this area, drop off here. Now this is free, this area is free. So then they go on to this area to pick up the red pieces and drop them here. So that's also equally important, how to navigate these or tackle these different missions, which ones to do first and which ones to do the last. And the last one they tackled was the white game pieces, because that the location, their drop-off location, was the closest to the finish area where they needed to end up. So that's how they optimized their overall navigation, right? And strategy. So this is a pretty advanced strategy. You need a lot of iterations to go to get this accurate, right? A lot of programming, good programming practices uh, to to make your navigation very accurate, your tooling to be precise, right? And so on. Okay.
Go.
Okay. So next, let me see if I can go to the next. Okay. Okay, so we went over this area, this challenge. So again, reiterating. So when you are starting on your on this year's challenge, look for the simplest ones first. I mean, if you look at their first strategy was to drop the battery, right? That would be the simplest one that we would tackle here. Ishan, or Nishka, you're going to go this year's challenge, right?
Yeah, I'll be presenting that now.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay. So look for the simplest challenge first. Okay. Get those wins, small wins, and then slowly back your solution up, then slowly make improvements to solve the other challenges. But focus on good build, strong build, uh, have a very good navigation. Look at getting your line following accurate, right? And then think about where you're going to place your sensors so that it helps with navigation and maybe helps in detecting the game pieces as well. If someone's joined, then I think you can ask questions along this, doing this. I think, right, Ishan, are we accepting questions at this stage, or?
Yeah, we in the chat, if you have a question, you can post it there and we'll answer it.
Okay, cool. Okay, so that was that was a brief overview of the strategy, and I think Ishan will go over this year's strategy, this year's mission in detail, and explain some of the basic strategies.
So this year's challenge, there are four main ways to get points. So first of all, you can remove the tree that's located at this intersection over here. You can bring emergency supplies to the correct locations, which all start over here. And the thing about this part of the challenge is that if you deliver an emergency supply to a different area, then you can still get partial points. And the last two are moving electrical cables from these areas over here to the areas over here and here. And then the last way to get points is to park where you started the robot. So if you start here, you can park, and if you start here, you can park. So that is this year's challenge. So we recommend starting with the easiest points. We've decided that moving the tree out of this cross is the easiest way to get points. So all you have to do for this challenge to get the 11 points is move it out so that it's not touching the black lines on the map. Parking the robot gives 11 points, which makes that also really easy because all you need to do is bring the robot back to where it started. And then bonus points, which you get by not doing this, is also just easy points. So you get these points by not moving the power generator. So if it's over here and you leave it alone and you get other points like maybe these or from the tree, then you'll get the bonus points for not moving the power generator. So the first part of WRO is building a robot. You want to start with a strong robot because once you get to programming, if you start programming your robot and you have all your programs and then you decide you want to change your robot, then you have to first change your robot and then you have to change all of your programming because that programming was only there for the first robot you built. So building a basic robot, you can find robots like these. These are provided by instructions on the Lego Mindstorms website over here. And you can use these as a guide when building your own robot. These show multiple uses of the sensors and motors that UV3 has. So over here you have the color sensor, which is actually pointing down. And this robot, for example, could line follow since it has the color sensor pointing down. The medium motor over here, this mechanism can be used to grab objects such as this object, but if you would like, you can modify this to grab bigger objects such as the pieces in the elementary game.
Some building tips. When collecting items, you might want to use something like a hook or a linear moving arm like in these pictures. If you're transporting multiple items at a time, you might design a fence, which can be a fold-out fence if you need to meet the size requirements and your robot needs to fit in the start area.
So the thing about building a fence like this over here, you can transport multiple pieces at one time, which is useful because it saves you having to go back and forth from trips. Tools like this are useful for saving space on your robot because the robot has to be constricted to 25 cubic centimeters, well, 25 by 25 by 25. And sometimes you won't be able to have the attachments you want that fit in the size. So if you have extending attachments like these, then they'll be able to easily do the job that you need while also staying in the size requirements.
You should try and support your wheels from both sides so that you prevent any breakage in your Legos, and you also give your robot more support. It will make your robot move more straight. You might want to make the back of your robot flat so that you can align your robot easily and make sure that it's facing the right way. You can create a jig in this and use it when in the start area, and you can align it so that your robot runs are more consistent. You might also want to use MyBlocks. Right now, this program is for moving straight. The motors will be B and C, and the robot will move for 10 inches at 75% speed. You will have to change this number over here, 5, to the diameter of the wheels that you are using, because it needs to be accurate, otherwise the program will get messed up.
So the reason that MyBlocks are useful is that once you make a MyBlock, you can use it anywhere in your program. And for example, this MyBlock is one of the most useful MyBlocks because rather than putting the number of rotations of your wheels you want every single time you want the robot to move, you can make a MyBlock that converts the inches that you can input into the MyBlock, and it converts it to rotations. So that way you have a consistent distance that you want to go, and you don't have to trial and error that part of the programming. So the way this logic goes is that first you have to find the diameter of the wheel. So you can measure that, and then you calculate the circumference, and then let's say the circumference is around 15 inches. So the distance in inches is going to be your input, and essentially this MyBlock, what it'll do is it'll take the input and it'll divide it by the circumference, so that way you have the number of rotations, and then you can input the speed that you want.
You might want to use line following because it helps your robot know where it helps your robot move and know where it is. You can also control how it stops. It will make your robot more consistent. So right here, this program is going to run until the ultrasonic sensor senses that the robot is 10 centimeters away from an object. You will also have to change this part over here depending on what your reflected light intensity setting is. You can measure this by putting your robot on the right side of the black line and putting it in between in the middle of the black part of the line and the white area. You'd measure it by going to port view on your brick and changing the color sensor to the reflected light intensity setting. Color sensors are really helpful in your robot run. You can use color sensors for line following and detecting colors of objects. You can use the touch sensor for triggering mechanisms on the robot. You can use the ultrasonic sensor, which is not the most accurate, but it measures the distance away from an object. And you can use the gyro sensor, which is used for turning, and you can use it for measuring degrees.
So, do you have any questions? Does chat have any questions? Let's go back to the challenge map. So since we are allowing teams to pick their own configuration instead of randomizing the game field, that will make their programming, that means they'll only need one program. because they can pick where the pieces will be, and then that's where they will be when they want to do their official run. So this means that they can strategize by putting the pieces in the optimal location based on their robot or based on the convenience of where these pieces have to go on the map. There are also 2 starting locations. So based on which mission you want to do, it would be better to start in the location nearest to the mission that you want to do first. Keep in mind that when programming, there are also these trees located on these black spots, and you have to keep them upright in their spot so that you don't lose points. Pranav, are there any questions?
Not so far, no.
So we can go back to last year's challenge just to show another robot. So here is a robot, and over here it has a total of 4 color sensors, 2 large motors and 2 medium motors. So they've used all of their ports, 4 here and 4 underneath that you can't see. So they're trying to maximize what they can do with their robot. So over here it has 2 color sensors facing downwards, and these color sensors are used for line following, which helps the robot stay on track and it can move quickly. And then it has these 2 medium motors which control these gates over here, which is a mechanism to keep these pieces tight against the robot so that they don't go away. So as you can see, the robot moves in an oscillating motion really smoothly. That means the line following is effective because it adheres to the line and it can move quickly at the same time. So these wheels are I would say about medium size. They're pretty useful because they get more speed they get more distance for one rotation, which means more speed. And as you can see, this outer part supports the wheel on the other side, which helps the robot move straight. Otherwise, if it's only supported on one side by an axle, then the axle can tend to bend due to the weight of the robot pushing down on the wheels. Oops. So I want to also point out these small wheels in the front. So these wheels are used as the 3rd and 4th wheel of the robot. So the robot isn't supported on the ground by anything other than the 2 back wheels and these really small wheels over here. The reason these people use these is probably because they have low friction and they have low surface area, which means that they don't drag, but they still support the robot up.
So also it's more balanced than having the robot balanced on a single bearing, right? So it keeps the robot more steady. Right?
Yeah, I agree. Over here with these robots over here, you can't see in this picture, but they're supported with a silver ball connected to a Lego piece, which means that this robot only has 3 points of contact with the ground. And that's not the most stable, which is why these people use the small pieces over there. And then also the silver ball with a Lego piece isn't. He makes the robot so that it isn't level, which could make it difficult to align your robot with a wall. So also when programming your robot, you're going to want to use a jig, and a jig is essentially a piece of Lego that aligns the robot in the same position every single time, where in the starting location. What that does is it makes the programming more consistent because it's starting in the same place every time, which minimizes human error, and then that makes it so that it's easier to program and you can maximize your points. So the sensors that you can use, these are most of the sensors you can use. Ultrasonic sensor you can use, but it isn't the most reliable. Sometimes if it thinks a wall or a piece is a certain distance and that distance may be inaccurate, the touch sensor is probably the most accurate, but it is not as helpful as some of the other maybe. But you can use the touch sensor for aligning with walls or touching pieces so that the robot knows how far it is away. And this just makes it an extra level. It just helps it with an extra level of navigation. So that way it knows on the field where it is based on what it touched.
Now, advanced teams probably only use color sensors because even with the gyro sensor, it doesn't work as reliably at high speeds, right? So you can use a gyro sensor, but typically, if you look at the advanced robots, they have two color sensors facing downwards for navigation, and then two color sensors facing forward for detecting game pieces, right? So yeah, if you focus on making the navigation accurate, then you can work with just the color sensors.
Yep. So do you have any questions about your robot and your programming? Because we would be happy to answer them. I'm going to stop sharing. You can either
You may be on mute, or yeah, you are on mute, or yep.
You can type a question if you want to. So how far are you in programming this challenge? Maybe. Is there anything anyone would like to add to the presentation?
I think if this is it, then I think we can, close the presentation and then post it online. And then you can still send us your questions, right? And we'll make our best attempt at getting back to you as quickly as possible, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's a question, right? So what are the common issues with sensors? So we can address each one of them, like for gyro, right? Gyro sensors, the challenge is with calibrating. You need to calibrate the sensor. It may take up to 1 to 2 seconds. At that time, the robot has to be completely still. And then, after calibration, you can then use the gyro to detect the angle that your robot is in and correct it, correct the angle of the robot, or you can use it to turn 90 degrees accurately. But the thing is, notice that at high speeds, they are not as accurate, right? So that is one challenge with the gyro sensor. Color sensors, again, we have to be very careful about calibrating the color sensors, right? In different lighting conditions, you can have different results. And I think, if you, like, for example, the line following program that Nishka showed uses light intensity. You can also look at using colors like white and black color to as instead of light intensity for line following as well. Okay.
Another thing about the light sensor is that unless it's well shielded, you might get different results from differently lit areas of the mat. So you might want to shield your light sensors from any outside light so that it gets the most consistent values it can.
Right. And typically the light sensor has to be about a half an inch away. This particular light sensor has to be half an inch away from the source for you to get accurate results. For example, even from the ground, it has to be raised half an inch. Otherwise, you'll get inconsistent results. There is a high-tech color sensor, high-technique color sensor that gives you a much more a bigger range spectrum of colors and is a little bit more accurate over longer distances. Okay, ultrasonic sensor, I experienced very much the same thing. It can be inconsistent depending on the surface and not typically very useful in WRO. Okay. Any other thing? I think there's another question. But any other comments about sensors? Okay. What are common issues with sensors and any advantage with using Python or block programming? Okay. So that's okay. Okay. Then so the question is advantage of using Python or block programming, right? Anyone?
Yeah. So, oh, sorry.
Good.
So the main difference is just how you like to program, because when you're using Python programming, it's mostly the same commands that you're giving the robot. It's just a different way that you do it. So the logic for example, the MyBlocks, instead of clicking and dragging these pieces, you can just type it out in Python. So in that sense, Python doesn't really make your programming easier. It just may save screen space, for example. But that also means that it's that you have to take a little more time to learn the Python language too.
Right. Well, there are a lot of there are advantages, right? That you are learning Python, right? Which is good. You can organize your code better, right? You can do a little bit more complicated logic easily, right? Like using arrays and other conditional logic is a lot more easily maintainable, right? You can in block programming, you can use MyBlocks, but you can do a lot but more programming, reuse code across using Python. The only problem with Python, as this is anecdotal, I heard that the block programs are, the drivers that drive the block programming are calibrated, and they are more accurate. While Python, when you use Python programming, it may not be as accurate. The sensors or the motors, right, may not be as accurate. So, for example, in block programming, the motor blocks will take into account the power and the current battery power and um, um, other aspects into consideration while ensuring that it reaches the exact location or exact rotation, right? But that you can test it out yourself, because that is what I have heard from some other competitors who use Python. Any other questions?
Any robot designs? we haven't programmed this challenge. Some of us, most of us don't have this mat.
But
For
I had done the design. So you start with the basic design that we showed you, right? Start with that. Then if you have, you can accomplish a lot of the missions with this design. Then as you have more, right, as you are advancing further into this, then you can modify the designs to do multiple things at once. Like, one thing that you would want to do is be able to collect the emergency supplies in an order, right? Detect those and in an order, and all of them at once, and then drop them off one by one, right? For that, you'll have to modify your robot design to, right? So that's one. But and for stability, again, I think what we talked about was the supporting the wheels, and then using those small wheels for supporting the other end of the robot, right? Instead of using the bearings, right? And also ensure that your robot is balanced, right? There's equal weight on both the wheels. That will ensure that your robot goes straight as much as possible. Even then, it's difficult because your motors can always drive a little, they may be off. So you'll have to calibrate those motors as well. You can unmute yourself and you can ask questions if you want. Or if you want more information about the competition itself or any other questions, please ask. Okay. Yeah. So color sensor calibration, I think there's programs that we can share those. Motor calibration is totally dependent on your build. So typically what you do is you test. So you write a program to move straight, right? Where you provide equal power to both the motors, and then see how far it deviates from the straight line. And then you can adjust the power to the motor that's moving faster, right? And then that becomes your move straight, MyBlock, right? At a high level, that's how you do it. But if you need more details, certainly we can help with that as well. Okay. Yeah. So Ishan, should show. We can share the color sensor calibration code, right? That should be easy. We should also have another. We should share the calibration for the gyro sensor as well if they want to use it.
Yeah, we can. I don't think we can do it now, but
Right. We can post it on our website, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Also, there's this link for EV3 lessons that I used to use. My sister used to use. I'm sure other people also use this on this call, but I found it really useful when using sensors and even just with the robot building. So take a look at that. I do not think it's updated with the new block programming, but you can follow through with the logic, and the logic is still the same with the new programming. So if you need help with line following, their lessons on line following are good, and with calibration, they tell you how to calibrate your gyro sensor, color sensor, and everything around those things.
What we can also do is we can have a session where you bring your the challenge, the problems you have. You can show that, you can show it over a video, and then we can maybe walk you through screen sharing about how to solve some of these problems.
Okay. Do you have any more questions?
Yeah, so I've been recording this entire workshop, so well, for the first part, you'll be able to watch the first part of the workshop when we post it, but
So we are planning this for June 7th, and we will have all the teams on a call, and then we will go one by one, asking teams to do their robot run, and they can set up the field in the configuration they want because we are eliminating the randomization component. And then we will go one by one, and then once everyone has gone their first round, then we'll repeat that 2 more times. And obviously their best score is always used.
you will be building your robot.
There is no robot build. So you
Oh,
don't.
you mean a period of the tournament? No, you're gonna be able to build your robot whenever you want. There's not gonna be like a lot of the stuff that's in the actual WRO tournament, like compounding a robot, all that stuff is not going to be there. Mostly because we're not too worried about you changing the programs, because you can actually just we don't have a randomization component either.
Yeah.
We're
So,
not really going to enforce any rules that we're not going to make any rules that we can't enforce.
So there is no robot build part. So that means you don't need to disassemble your robot before. You can keep it completely built, and then you won't be disassembling it at any point during the competition.
So yeah, exactly. It would be like FLL.
Yep.
But you'd also be using this as practice for the WRO 2020 season, so keep that in mind. You might not want to build a super complicated robot that you can't take apart and reassemble.
So,
Regionals, yes, we are still deciding on the time when things clear up and we are allowed to, meet. We will look at a time later. The WRO USA organization is still looking at, um, yes, at a future date. But yeah, if it clashes with the FLL season, yeah, we'll certainly have to take that into account as well, right? FLL season may happen, may not happen. Again, that's, this is all up in the air. We are all waiting on this. So in the worst case, as we'll likely will have multiple of these competitions just to keep prepare you, and then maybe let's figure out how we can help you with this. But yes, it might clash with the FLL season. We'll have to take that into account as well, because most of you have one robot, right? Which I can't expect to have two different robots, for one for FLL and one for WRO. Okay, yep, we'll take that into account. Okay, I think that's it. I think we are right on the hour. Yep.
yep. So,
No, there is no minimum team members. One person, team is good enough. Oh, yep. We understand the challenges of having multiple team members. So, yep, you can have as many as you want in your team.
thank you for joining.
So we are currently looking at, okay, are you planning for both V2 and EV3? The question there is, so I think we are looking at only elementary and junior, right? But are we looking at V2?
I mean, not as of now. I think we sent out a survey and we got most responses for elementary and junior, which is why we decided to do those two. But in the future, if we get more people who are interested in WeDo, we would probably do a WeDo challenges. The WeDo challenge as well. It's basically just based on interest.
Yeah, we're trying this out with EV3 first, see how it works out, and then we will extend it out to other areas. Okay. Cool.
Thank you for joining. We will post this on our website, and it will also be on our Absolute Zero YouTube channel if you would like to watch the beginning. Okay. Thank you.